I never thought life would turn out this way. Just a few months ago, I had a home, a bed, a place where I felt safe. Now, the cold concrete is my mattress, and the distant glow of streetlights is the only thing keeping the darkness from swallowing me whole. Every night, I huddle in the same spot, outside a 24-hour diner, where the smell of food tortures me more than the biting wind. People pass by, some glancing at me with pity, others pretending I don't exist. I don't blame them. Nobody wants to look at a reminder of how easily life can fall apart. I was one of them once, rushing through life, never stopping to think that someone like me had a story. But I do. And it's not the kind of story I ever wanted to tell. It all started when my mom got sick. We never had much, just the two of us in a tiny apartment, barely scraping by. She worked long hours, always telling me that as long as we had each other, we'd be fine. But cancer doesn't care about love. It doesn't care about promises. It took her fast, leaving me with nothing but hospital bills and a landlord who didn't care that I was 17 with nowhere to go. The day I got kicked out, I remember standing on the sidewalk with a black garbage bag filled with the only things I could grab. I had no one to call. No family, no real friends. Just a city full of strangers who walked past like I was invisible. I told myself I'd figure it out, that this was temporary. That was weeks ago. Maybe months. Time feels different when you're trying to survive. I learned quickly how to blend in, how to make myself small enough to not be a threat, but visible enough for someone to maybe throw $1 my way. The first few days, I was too ashamed to ask for help. I sat on park benches, pretending I was just another kid killing time. But hunger is louder than pride. Eventually, I started holding out my hand, hoping someone would notice. Nights are the hardest. The cold seeps into your bones, making sleep almost impossible. I don't remember what it feels like to be warm, to have a pillow under my head instead of a backpack filled with everything I own. Some nights, I think about my mom. I wonder if she would be ashamed of me, or if she would tell me to keep fighting. I try to hear her voice in my head, but it's getting harder to remember. Tonight feels worse than usual. Maybe it's the exhaustion, or maybe it's because I haven't eaten in 2 days. My stomach twists in knots, and I feel lightheaded, but I ignore it. I have to. The world doesn't stop just because I'm hungry. I sit on my usual spot outside the diner, watching people inside laughing, eating, living lives that feel a million miles away from mine. That's when I see him. He walks past, tall, broad shoulders, a presence that makes people turn their heads. At first, I don't recognize him. He's just another face in the crowd. But then someone whispers his name. Big Shaq. I've heard of him, of course, everyone has. He's larger than life, a giant both in size and reputation. He's the kind of person who belongs in a world I'll never be a part of. He stops a few feet away, looking down at his phone. For a second, I think about saying something, about asking for help. But what would I even say? He's a celebrity. I'm just a kid on the street. So I do what I always do. I stay quiet, hoping, just maybe, someone will notice me. And then something unexpected happens. He looks up, right at me. I freeze. People glance at me all the time, but they never really see me. Not like this. Not with eyes that aren't full of pity or judgment. He just looks like he's actually trying to figure out who I am, not just what I am. For a moment, I wonder if I should look away, pretend I don't notice, but something in his expression makes me hold his gaze. Then he steps closer. You good, kid? His voice is deep, calm, the kind of voice that makes people listen. I nod instinctively, but we both know it's a lie. When's the last time you ate? He asks. I open my mouth, but no words come out. What do I even say? Telling the truth feels like admitting weakness. But lying won't change anything either. So I just shrug, looking down at the cracked pavement. He exhales, like he already knows the answer. Come on. Before I can react, he gestures toward the diner. I hesitate. People usually avoid me, not invite me inside. My clothes are dirty, my hair unwashed. I know what happens when someone like me walks into places like that. I get stares, whispers, sometimes even a manager telling me to leave before I make customers uncomfortable. But Shaq doesn't wait for me to decide. He just walks in like it's the most normal thing in the world, expecting me to follow. So I do. The first bite is almost overwhelming. I chew slowly, trying to savor it, but my body has other plans. The hunger takes over, and suddenly, I'm eating like I haven't had a meal in years. Maybe I haven't. Shaq doesn't say anything. He just watches, letting me take my time. After a while, he finally speaks. What's your name? I swallow hard. It's been so long since someone asked me that, since someone actually cared. Jason, I managed to say. My voice is rough, like it's been unused for too long. He nods. All right, Jason, what's your story? That question is harder. I look down at my plate, pushing fries around with my fork. I don't know how to explain it all. The eviction, the nights on the street, the way life just unraveled. He must see my hesitation because he doesn't push. You don't gotta tell me if you don't want to, he says. Just know I'm listening if you do. That shouldn't mean as much as it does, but it does. I take a deep breath, and for the first time in a long time, I start talking. Talking feels strange. It's been so long since anyone cared to listen. At first, the words come slow, like I have to pull them from somewhere deep inside me. But once I start, I can't stop. I tell him about my mom, how everything fell apart after she passed, how I ended up on the street with nowhere to go. I don't know why I'm telling him all this. Maybe it's because he isn't looking at me with pity, just quiet understanding. Shaq doesn't interrupt. He just nods occasionally, letting me get it all out. When I finally stop, the silence between us feels heavy, but not uncomfortable. He exhales, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. You ever think about what's next? He asks. I blink at him. Next? There is no next. Every day is just about surviving until the next one. Planning for the future isn't something people like me get to do. I shake my head. Well, he says, leaning forward, how about we change that? I don't know what he means. And honestly, I don't know if I want to. Hope is dangerous. It makes you think things can get better, only to remind you that they usually don't. But Shaq isn't just talking. He's already pulling out his phone, making calls, talking to someone about finding me a place to stay. I hear words like temporary housing, job opportunities, and mentorship. It doesn't feel real. People don't just do things like this for kids like me. When he hangs up, he looks at me. First things first, you need a safe place to sleep. I swallow hard. Why are you doing this? The question slips out before I can stop it. He shrugs. Because I can. That answer shouldn't make sense, but somehow it does. He pays for the meal, and we step back outside. The cold feels different now, less suffocating. Like maybe, for the first time in a long time, it won't last forever. A black SUV pulls up, and a man steps out, giving Shaq a respectful nod before turning to me. "This is Mike," Shaq says. "He's going to take you to a shelter I trust. Good people. Safe place. No more sleeping outside." I hesitate. It's not that I don't want help. I do. But trusting people hasn't exactly worked out well for me in the past. Maybe he sees the doubt in my eyes because he crouches down slightly, looking me right in the face. "Listen, Jason, you don't owe me anything. You don't have to take this if you don't want to. But I'm telling you, you deserve better than this." I don't know why, but that sentence hits me harder than anything else. I nod. "Okay." He smiles, claps a hand on my shoulder. "Good, now go get warm." I climb into the SUV, my heart pounding. As we pull away, I look out the window, watching Shaq get smaller in the distance. A part of me still doesn't believe this is real. But maybe, just maybe, this is the start of something new. The first night in the shelter feels unreal. For the first time in months, I sleep in a real bed with a roof over my head. No cold pavement, no fear of someone stealing my stuff, no hunger clawing at my stomach. Just warmth, safety, and something I haven't felt in a long time. Hope. Over the next few weeks, things start to change. The shelter staff helps me get proper identification, something I lost when I ended up on the streets. They connect me with a counselor, someone who actually listens without judgment. It's strange talking about everything. About my mom, about the loneliness, about how I almost gave up. But with each conversation, the weight on my chest feels a little lighter. Then one day, I get a message. It's from Shaq. "How's my guy doing?" I stare at my phone, not sure what to say. He didn't just help me and move on. He actually cares. I type back, trying to figure things out. His response comes almost instantly. "That's all part of the journey, bro. Let's meet up." A few days later, we meet at a gym. When I walk in, he grins. "You look different." I rub the back of my neck. "In a good way?" "In the best way," he says. Then he does something I don't expect. He hands me a pair of sneakers. "They're yours," he says. "But there's a catch." I raise an eyebrow. "What's the catch?" "You gotta use them." I smirk. "Use them for what?" "Whatever you want. Basketball, running, training, anything." "But you gotta move forward, Jason. You hear me?" I grip the shoes tighter than I probably should. It's not about the sneakers. It's about what they represent. A second chance. A future. From that day on, I start pushing myself. I wake up early. I train. I take job training classes at the shelter. I even start volunteering, helping other kids who were in the same situation I was. Every time I feel like giving up, I remember Shaq's words. "You gotta move forward." Months pass. I get my first job at a community center. It's not much, but it's mine. It's a start. One day, I get another text from Shaq. "Proud of you, bro." I stare at the screen, my throat tightening. He has no idea how much those words mean to me. A year ago, I was invisible. Just another kid lost in the system, another name people ignored. But now, because one person decided to see me, everything is different. And one day, when I'm in a position to help someone else, I know exactly what I'll do. I'll pay it forward.